Okay. Review of Vienna Genesis. We have two stories. We have Jacob wrestling the angel. There was a Khan Academy video about that. Um, and we have Rebecca and Eliza at the well. What do they have in common? Well, they both have these classical elements in common. We see colonnades in both, right? Rebecca and Eliza at the well has also this Roman fountain, Roman looking fountain. So they do have some classical elements in common that we want to keep in mind. We want to think about the fact that Byzantine art and early Christian art in general, and also into medieval art, tends to focus on the symbolic rather than the literal. And that also fits into their interest in abstraction. Now, I do not say abstract, I said abstraction, which means that taking something how it looks in reality and changing it somewhat in order to fit your purposes. Okay. You need to know what an illuminated manuscript is. If you cannot tell me what an illuminated manuscript is, you need to go back and look again. And you need to also think about how the person who owned this object, interacted with this object, would have used it in what conditions, and how the elements, or rather how the form of the piece, the gold, or the gold writings, the silver, the writing in silver, which obviously has been tarnished, the fact that it was on deep purple vellum, right? How that and the conditions, the candlelight that would have been burning as it was read, likely, how that would have affected the viewer's experience with the work. Remember, these are biblical stories. So this is supposed to be a spiritual experience, right? You need to know what vellum is, because we're not printing on paper yet. And obviously we're not printing even, because all of this is handwritten and drawn. We don't have a printing press yet. We have continuous narration in both. You should remember what continuous narration is, right? We have the same characters, or, elements of the same scene, produced more than one time in one image. We need to know who would own books back then. You also need to make sure that you're clear on the fact that this is not an icon. An icon is different, right? An icon is usually on wood. It's on wood, and it's painted usually with encaustic, which we remember is the colored wax, essentially. And it is a prayer. It's a tool for prayer. Now, this you could say is a tool for prayer as well, but they're not created in the same way. I've mentioned that when icons are created, they're created in a prayerful environment. The people who made icons were trained how to create them in such a way so that kind of the prayers were, that they would say prayers as they were creating the icon, so that the piece was somehow infused with more spiritual power, etc., more or less. And so this is not the same thing. This is obviously books from the Bible, or Genesis, obviously, but not an icon. All right. We do have suggestions of depth here. They talked about the modeling I talked about the modeling on the camels, right? We have some modeling on some of the garments, etc. So again, Christian art at this point in time is not concerned with anatomical realism. Eventually we'll get there, especially in the Renaissance. We'll get there in the Renaissance. Boy, will we get there. Okay.